My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. Something is waiting for you here. Pause here, breathe slowly, and listen, because in this fictional spiritual message, something has happened today that your soulmate never expected to experience. And now they are trying to find the courage to warn you. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. There is a reason these words found you at this exact moment. There is a reason your heart may have suddenly become unusually quiet while hearing them. Somewhere inside you, there may already be a question you have been carrying for a long time. What is really happening between us? You have wondered whether the silence meant the connection was over. You have wondered whether your soulmate forgot you. You have wondered whether the memories mattered only to you. You have wondered why someone could feel so close to your soul and yet become so distant in reality. But today, something changed. Something happened that made your soulmate stop pretending. They had been keeping certain feelings under control. They had been telling themselves that they could move forward, remain distracted, and eventually stop thinking about you. They thought time would solve everything. They thought distance would make the memories weaker. They thought silence would make the connection disappear. But today, something happened that brought everything back. And this time, they could not escape it. My child, imagine someone moving through an ordinary day, believing they have everything under control. They wake up. They go through their responsibilities. They speak to people. They smile when necessary. They continue their routine. Nothing appears unusual. But then one unexpected thing happens. A song plays. A name appears. A place reminds them of you. A conversation suddenly sounds familiar. And without warning, the person they have been trying not to think about is standing in the center of their thoughts again. That person is you. At first, they try to ignore it. They tell themselves, why am I thinking about this now? Then another memory appears. And another. Then they remember something you once said. Something they did not understand at the time. Something they dismissed. Something they may even have laughed away. But today, that sentence suddenly makes sense. And when it does, their entire expression changes. Because they realize they may have misunderstood you. They may have misunderstood your silence. They may have misunderstood your distance. They may have misunderstood the reason you stopped fighting for the connection. For a long time, they may have believed you simply stopped caring. But today, they begin seeing another possibility. Maybe you were tired. Maybe you were protecting yourself. Maybe you had given everything you could give. Maybe you were waiting for them to meet you halfway. And when they never did, you finally stopped reaching. That realization hurts them. Because they remember every opportunity they had to choose differently. Every message they could have answered. Every conversation they could have had. Every moment when they could have been honest. And suddenly, they are asking themselves a painful question. What if I was the reason they finally stopped believing in us? My beloved child, there is a strange kind of awakening that happens when someone realizes they may have pushed away the very person they secretly wanted to keep. That awakening does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it arrives like a storm. Sometimes it arrives through one sentence. Sometimes it arrives through a person from the past. And today, in this story, it arrived unexpectedly. Your soulmate discovered something. Something that forced them to look back. Something that made them question a decision they once believed was final. And that is why the first words they want to send you are not romantic. They are urgent. I have to warn you. They type those words. Then stop. They look at them. They delete them. They type them again. Then stop again. Because they know that once they send that message, there will be no hiding behind silence. You will ask questions. You will want answers. You will want to know what happened. And they are afraid of that moment. Not because the truth is necessarily dangerous, but because the truth is emotional. The truth could expose them. The truth could make you realize how deeply they were affected by you. The truth could reveal that their silence was never as simple as it appeared. For months, perhaps even longer, they have been trying to convince themselves that they made the right decision. They told themselves that walking away was necessary. They told themselves that circumstances were impossible. They told themselves that you deserved someone different. They told themselves that they were protecting you. But deep inside, another voice kept asking, "Then why can't you forget them?" They had no answer. They tried to bury that question. But today, the question became louder. And something happened that made it impossible to ignore. They came across information that connected to you. Maybe it was something they had never seen before. Maybe it was something they suddenly understood differently. Maybe another person unintentionally revealed something. Maybe they discovered that a story they believed about you was incomplete. And suddenly, the past began rearranging itself. A conversation that once seemed insignificant became important. A reaction they once misunderstood suddenly became understandable. A moment when you went quiet suddenly made sense. And they realized that perhaps they had judged you using information that was never complete. That realization shook them. Because now they have to confront something they never wanted to admit. They may have been wrong. And admitting you were wrong about someone you loved is not easy. It requires humility. It requires courage. It requires facing the possibility that your own fear influenced your decisions. Your soulmate is beginning to see that. They are beginning to understand how much fear controlled them. Fear of rejection. Fear of losing control. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of being hurt. Fear of trusting someone completely. And perhaps most importantly, fear of discovering that the person they loved could actually leave them. So they created distance first. They thought if they walked away first, they could never be abandoned. But they did not realize something. You can protect yourself from rejection by refusing to love. But you also protect yourself from being loved. That is the tragedy they are beginning to understand. They built walls around their heart. Then wondered why they felt alone. And today, one of those walls cracked. My child, there is something you need to understand about this story. This is not a message telling you to chase someone. It is not telling you to abandon your boundaries. It is not telling you to wait endlessly for a person who refuses to communicate. Your life must continue. Your healing must continue. Your peace must remain yours. But sometimes, a person's awakening happens after you stop chasing them. Sometimes your absence becomes the mirror they needed. Sometimes your silence says what hundreds of conversations could not. And your soulmate may finally be hearing that silence. They may finally understand that you were not trying to punish them. You were trying to survive emotionally. You were trying to stop losing pieces of yourself. And when they realize that, something inside them breaks. Because they remember the person you were before the pain. They remember your excitement. Your patience. Your warmth. Your willingness to understand. They remember how easily you once smiled around them. And then they remember the moment that changed everything. The moment when your energy became different. The moment when you stopped asking. The moment when you stopped explaining. The moment when you stopped trying to convince them that the connection mattered. They thought you were becoming cold. Today, they wonder whether you were simply becoming strong. That difference is enormous. And it is haunting them. They are asking themselves whether you have moved on. Whether someone else has entered your life. Whether you still think about them. Whether you would even answer if they reached out. And one question scares them more than all the others. What if they finally stopped waiting for me? That question follows them. They try to distract themselves. It returns. They speak to someone. It returns. They become busy. It returns. They lie down at night. And there it is again. Your name. Your memory. Your face. Your voice. The things they never said. The apology they never gave. The explanation they never offered. The truth they kept postponing. My beloved child, tonight they are realizing that postponing the truth does not make the truth disappear. It only makes the confession heavier. And there is another reason they are afraid. They know you may not accept words anymore. You may need actions. You may need consistency. You may need honesty. You may need proof that something has genuinely changed. And they are beginning to understand that. That is why they are not simply thinking about saying, "I miss you." They are thinking about what comes after. Because missing someone is easy. Changing for someone is harder. Returning is easy. Staying is harder. Saying, "I love you" is easy. Building trust again is much harder. And your soulmate knows that if they come back, they cannot return as the same person. Something must change. Otherwise the same story will repeat. That realization is frightening. But it is also the beginning of maturity. And today, something happened that pushed them toward that realization. They saw something. Something that reminded them of a promise. A promise you may not even remember making. A promise hidden inside an ordinary conversation. Maybe you once told them, "If you ever need me, I will listen." Maybe you said, "I just want the truth." Maybe you told them, "Don't disappear without explaining." Maybe you simply said, "I don't need perfection. I need honesty." Whatever those words were, they have returned to your soulmate's mind. And now those words feel completely different. Because they realize they gave you almost everything except the one thing you asked for. The truth. That is why the warning matters. They are not only warning you about something outside of themselves. They are warning you about the truth they are about to reveal. And there is one part of that truth they have never told you. Not because they did not care. Because they were ashamed. They were afraid that if you knew the real reason they made certain choices, you would never look at them the same way again. There was a decision. A specific decision. A moment when they had a choice between two paths. One path would have required courage. The other required silence. They chose silence. At the time, they believed silence would protect everything. Instead, silence created the distance that almost destroyed it. Today, they understand that. And the discovery they made today brought that moment back with painful clarity. They realized that someone else's words may have influenced them. Someone they trusted. Someone whose opinion mattered. Someone who may have convinced them that stepping away from you was the safer option. But now your soulmate is questioning that advice. They are asking, "Why did I listen? Why didn't I ask them directly? Why did I believe everyone except the person I loved?" Those questions are destroying their certainty. And then something even more unexpected happens. They discover that the person who influenced their decision may not have known the entire story. Maybe that person only knew one side. Maybe they misunderstood. Maybe they had their own reasons. Maybe they were simply wrong. And your soulmate realizes they made a life-changing decision based on incomplete information. Imagine carrying that realization. Imagine discovering that the distance between you and someone you loved may have been built on a misunderstanding. That is the emotional storm they are facing. And now they want to tell you. But they are afraid. Because what if you say, "Why didn't you ask me then?" They know they have no easy answer. What if you say, "You should have trusted me"? They know you would be right. What if you say, "You hurt me"? They know they cannot deny it. And what if you say, "I have moved on"? That is the sentence they fear most. Because they cannot demand that you wait. They cannot demand that your heart remain frozen in the past. They cannot expect you to remain available while they figured themselves out. That is why tonight feels so important. They know time has consequences. And for the first time, they are feeling the possibility that the person they assumed would always be there may actually become unreachable. My child, this is where the energy of the story changes. Until now, your soulmate was remembering. Now they are deciding. They take their phone. They open your conversation. They stare at your name. They scroll through old messages. Some make them smile. Some make them hurt. Some make them ashamed. Then they reach one message they had never fully understood. They read it again. And again. And suddenly, they see it. The hidden meaning. The emotional truth beneath your words. Their heart sinks. Because they realize you were giving them one final opportunity. And they wasted it. They close their eyes. A long silence follows. Then they whisper, "I should have listened." For a moment, they consider doing nothing. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week. Maybe when they feel more prepared. But something inside them says, "No. Not this time." Because today has already changed something. They know they cannot return to pretending. So they begin typing. "I need to tell you something." They pause. Delete it. Try again. "I have to warn you." Pause. Their hands become still. They know the next sentence is the one that could change everything. They type. "Something happened today." And stop. Their heart begins racing. Because the moment they reveal what happened, you will finally understand why they disappeared. You will understand who influenced them. You will understand what they discovered. You will understand why they suddenly began looking at the past differently. But there is something else. Something they have not yet realized. The discovery they made today does not only concern the past. It concerns the future. It concerns a decision that is already moving toward them. A decision they may have to make very soon. And that decision could determine whether this connection remains a memory or becomes a completely different chapter. They look at the screen again. Your name is still there. Their unfinished message is still there. "I have to warn you." They take a breath. Then another. And just as they are about to reveal the truth, another notification appears. They look at it. Their expression changes instantly. Because the message is from someone connected to the past. Someone they never expected to hear from again. Someone who knows more than they should. Someone who could reveal what really happened. Your soulmate opens the message. They read the first line. Then the second. Then they stop breathing for a moment. Because the final sentence says something they never expected. Something that makes them realize the story they believed about you may have been wrong from the beginning. Their hands begin to shake. They look at your name. Then at the message. Then back at your name. And now they understand why they felt the need to warn you. They whisper, "I have to tell them before it's too late." But what exactly did that message reveal? Who sent it? What secret did it expose? And why does your soulmate suddenly believe that you deserve to know the truth before anyone else tells you? There is one final detail. The detail that makes them realize this is no longer simply about two people who lost their way. Something else is involved. Something that has been hidden behind the silence. And when your soulmate finally opens the next message, they see a sentence that changes the entire meaning of your connection. They stare at it. Their heart sinks. And for the first time in a very long time, they stop protecting themselves. They stop thinking about pride. They stop thinking about what people will say. They stop thinking about whether you will forgive them. They think only about one thing. You need to know. They begin typing again. I have to warn you. But this time, they do not stop. This time, they continue. And the words they are about to send contain the truth they have been hiding for so long. A truth about what happened. A truth about why they left. A truth about who they listened to. And a truth about what they discovered today. But before the message can reach you, something unexpected happens. The person who sent that mysterious message calls. Your soulmate looks at the screen. The call keeps ringing. They know they have to answer. Because whatever comes next could change everything. And somewhere inside their heart, they already know one thing. After this call, there will be no way to keep the truth hidden. They take one final breath. They press answer. And the first words they hear are, you need to know what really happened. My beloved child. Before you continue, pause for a moment. Because this is where the warning becomes a revelation. The call your soulmate was afraid to answer has finally been answered. For several seconds, neither person speaks. There is only silence. Your soulmate can hear the other person's breathing on the phone. Then comes a quiet voice. You need to know what really happened. Those words hit harder than expected. Your soulmate sits completely still. The room around them seems to disappear. Every sound becomes distant. Every thought becomes focused on one question. What happened? The person on the other end hesitates. Then says something your soulmate never expected to hear. The story you were told about them was incomplete. Your soulmate closes their eyes. For a moment, they cannot respond. Because somewhere deep inside, they already knew. They had felt it. They had questioned it. They had tried to ignore it. But now someone else is saying it aloud. The story was incomplete. And suddenly, memories begin moving through their mind. Your face. Your silence. Your unanswered questions. The moments you tried to explain something. The moments they refused to listen. The times you looked hurt but said nothing. The final conversation. The distance. The goodbye that never really felt like a goodbye. Everything begins connecting. Your soulmate asks quietly. What didn't I know? The voice on the other side says. There was something happening behind the scenes that you were never told. Your soulmate's heart begins beating faster. What are you talking about? The answer does not come immediately. Instead, the person says something that makes your soulmate sit forward. You need to understand that they were not the person you were made to believe they were. Your soulmate freezes. Because suddenly, the person they thought they knew may have been completely different. Not because you changed. Because their understanding of you was wrong. They had believed something. Something that shaped their choices. Something that influenced their distance. Something that became the foundation of their decision to walk away. And now that foundation is cracking. They ask. Who told me the wrong story? Silence. Then the answer. Someone who thought they were protecting you. Your soulmate feels a wave of confusion. Protecting me from what? The voice becomes softer. From getting hurt. And that sentence creates a strange sadness. Because the person who was supposedly protecting them may have actually helped separate them from the person they loved. Your soulmate remembers all the warnings they received. Don't trust this. Don't get too attached. Things will become complicated. You're better off walking away. You don't know the whole story. At the time, those words sounded reasonable. Now they sound different. Now they sound like pieces of a puzzle. Your soulmate suddenly realizes something. They did not investigate. They did not ask enough questions. They accepted an explanation because accepting it was easier than facing their own feelings. They chose certainty over truth. And today, that certainty disappeared. My child, this is the moment where the heart often breaks open. Not because love has disappeared. Because the truth has finally become stronger than denial. Your soulmate asks the question they have been afraid to ask. Did they ever stop caring about me? The voice on the other end becomes quiet. Then comes the answer. No. One word. Just one word. But it destroys every defense they built. Your soulmate looks down. Their eyes fill with emotion. Because suddenly, all those moments when they believed you had forgotten them feel different. Your silence was not indifference. Your distance was not hatred. You were trying to protect your heart. You were waiting for honesty. And when honesty did not come, you stopped asking. Your soulmate realizes something painful. You may have loved them quietly while they were convincing themselves that you did not care. And that realization hurts. They remember your patience. Your forgiveness. Your attempts to understand. They remember how many times you could have walked away earlier. And they remember the moment you finally did. They thought you were leaving because you had found someone better. But perhaps you were leaving because you finally understood that you could not keep losing yourself. Your soulmate whispers. Why didn't they tell me? The answer comes slowly. Because they were afraid you wouldn't believe them. That sentence changes everything. Your soulmate remembers moments when you tried. They remember you saying things they dismissed. They remember your hesitation. They remember the sadness in your eyes. They remember the way you became quieter. And suddenly, they understand. You were telling the truth. They simply were not ready to hear it. My beloved child, sometimes people do not lose love because the love disappears. They lose it because fear becomes louder than love. And your soulmate is finally understanding the price of that fear. They ask. What happened today? The voice on the other side pauses. Then says. Today I found something. Your soulmate waits. I found proof. The word proof changes the atmosphere. Proof of what? Proof that you were telling the truth. Proof that someone interfered. Proof that the past was misunderstood. Your soulmate asks again. Proof of what? The answer is simple. Proof that you tried to protect them. Your soulmate's heart sinks. Because now they understand the real meaning of your silence. You were not trying to punish them. You were trying to protect them from something you believed they were not ready to face. And suddenly, your soulmate feels ashamed. They had spent so much time thinking you were the problem. Now they are wondering whether you were protecting them from a truth they never wanted to see. The person on the phone continues. There is more. Your soulmate closes their eyes. They are almost afraid to hear it. What more? The voice says. They knew something about you that you never knew they knew. Your soulmate becomes completely silent. Because now the story has another layer. There was something you knew. Something they knew. Something neither of you fully understood. A secret hidden inside the relationship. A truth that existed between the lines. And suddenly, your soulmate remembers one particular conversation. You asked them a strange question. They did not understand why. Now they do. You were testing whether they already knew. And they failed to realize it. My child, there are moments in life when the past suddenly changes meaning. Nothing physically changes. The events remain the same. But your understanding changes. And that is what is happening to your soulmate. Every memory is being rewritten. Not because the facts changed. Because the truth behind those facts is finally becoming visible. They remember the day they walked away. They remember how you looked at them. They remember your silence. They remember how badly they wanted to turn around. But they didn't. They kept walking. And now they realize they may have been walking away from the wrong person. The person on the phone says, "You need to talk to them." Your soulmate immediately responds, "I know." But then comes the fear. What if they don't want to hear from me? The answer is unexpected. Then respect their choice. That sentence lands deeply. Because it is the truth your soulmate needed to hear. Love does not give someone ownership of another person's heart. If they want another chance, they must earn trust. If they want forgiveness, they must accept that forgiveness cannot be demanded. If they want to return, they must return honestly. And for the first time, your soulmate understands that. They are not thinking about how to convince you. They are thinking about how to tell the truth. That is a completely different kind of love. My beloved child, this is where your soulmate begins preparing the message. They open your conversation again. Your name appears on the screen. They stare at it. Their fingers hover. Then they type. "I need to tell you something." They stop. Delete it. Try again. Please read this before you decide anything. They stop again. Their heart is racing. Then they finally type. "I have to warn you." This time, they continue. "Something happened today." They pause. Then. "I found out something about what happened between us." Their hands begin trembling. They know they cannot explain everything through text. But they need to start. So they write. "I was wrong." 3 words. But they carry years of silence. They stare at them. Then press send. The message leaves. For a moment, they regret it. Their heart begins racing. They wonder whether you will respond. 1 minute passes. Then another. Nothing. They check again. Nothing. They place the phone down. Pick it up. Check again. Still nothing. And this is where they realize something important. They have no control over what happens next. The truth has been delivered. Now the choice belongs to you. And that is terrifying. Because for the first time, your soulmate has surrendered control. They cannot force you to forgive. They cannot force you to respond. They cannot force you to return. All they can do is tell the truth. And perhaps that is what they should have done from the beginning. My child, while your soulmate waits, something inside them changes. They stop thinking about the outcome. They begin thinking about your pain. They remember what their silence cost you. They remember the nights you may have wondered what you did wrong. They remember the uncertainty. They remember how easily they could have prevented it with one honest conversation. And they realize that sometimes the greatest apology is not a sentence. It is accepting responsibility without asking the other person to make you feel better. They whisper, "I hurt them." And for the first time, they do not make an excuse. They do not blame circumstances. They do not blame timing. They do not blame anyone else. They simply admit it. "I hurt them." That admission becomes the beginning of something new. Not necessarily a reunion. Not necessarily a romantic ending. But something more important. Truth. Because a connection built on truth can finally be understood. And a connection built on confusion can finally be released. Then your soulmate receives a notification. Their heart jumps. They look at the screen. It is from you. They open it. And the message is short. "You said you have to warn me." "What happened?" Your soulmate stares at those words. This is the moment they have been waiting for. But now that it has arrived, they are terrified. Because they know the next message will expose everything. They begin typing. There is someone you need to know about. They stop. Delete. Try again. There was something I was told about you. Delete. Then finally. I believed something about you that wasn't true. They send it. Your response comes quickly. What? Your soulmate closes their eyes. The secret is almost out. They type. I was told you had chosen someone else. Silence. They continue. I believed you had moved on. Another message. I believed you didn't want me anymore. Then another. But today I found out that wasn't the whole truth. You read the messages. Your heart becomes still. Because suddenly, something from the past makes sense. Your soulmate continues. They told me you were the reason everything became complicated. Then. I believed them. Then. I should have asked you. Then. I didn't. And finally. I'm sorry. For a long moment, there is no response. Your soulmate stares at the screen. They know this apology cannot erase the past. They know it cannot return the lost time. They know it cannot instantly repair trust. But it is honest. And honesty is where healing begins. Then you respond. Not with anger. Not with forgiveness. Just one sentence. Who told you that? Your soulmate reads it. Their hands become cold. Because this is the question they feared. They know the answer. And revealing the name could change more than just the relationship. It could expose a much larger misunderstanding. They type the name. Then stop. They delete it. They type again. Stop. Finally, they send it. And when you see the name, your heart drops. Because you know exactly who it is. Someone from your past. Someone you trusted. Someone you never imagined would be connected to this. And suddenly, the entire story becomes larger. Your soulmate realizes that you already know something. They ask. You know them? You do not answer immediately. Because memories are returning. Things you once noticed. Things you once questioned. Things you ignored. And now they are connecting. Your soulmate waits. Then another message appears. You write. I knew something was wrong. Your soulmate's heart stops for a moment. What do you mean? You respond. I just never knew it reached you. Those words change everything. Because now both of you realize that the misunderstanding was not random. Something happened behind the scenes. Something neither of you completely understood. And the person who caused the confusion may have believed they were helping. But their actions created a distance that neither of you knew how to cross. Your soulmate calls you. The phone rings. You look at the screen. For a moment, you consider ignoring it. Then you answer. Neither of you speaks. There are no dramatic words. No perfect speech. Just two people listening to each other's breathing after a long period of silence. Then your soulmate says. I don't know how to say this. You remain quiet. They continue. I should have trusted you. Silence. I should have listened. Another silence. Then their voice becomes emotional. And I should never have let someone else's fear become my decision. Those words finally break the wall. They tell you everything. What they were told. What they believed. Why they walked away. What they discovered today. Who contacted them. What proof they saw. and why they are now terrified that the years of distance may have been built on a misunderstanding. You listen. You do not interrupt. You let them finish. And when they finally stop speaking, they say, "I don't expect you to forgive me." That sentence surprises you. They continue, "I don't expect you to come back." Then, "I don't even know if I deserve another chance." Their voice breaks. "But I couldn't keep you living with a lie." My beloved child, this is the moment where the fictional spiritual message reaches its deepest truth. Sometimes love is not proven by holding on. Sometimes love is proven by finally telling the truth, even when the truth may cost you the person you want. Your soulmate is learning that tonight. They are not asking you to forget. They are asking you to know. And perhaps that is what your heart needed most. Not another promise. Not another dramatic declaration. Truth. You ask them one question. Why now? Your soulmate becomes silent. Then says, "Because something happened today." You wait. They continue. "I saw something that made me realize I might lose you forever." You ask, "What did you see?" They hesitate. Then finally answer, "I saw you moving forward." Those words sound simple. But they carry enormous weight. They tell you that your soulmate saw evidence that you are rebuilding your life. That you are becoming stronger. That you are no longer standing in the same place emotionally. And instead of feeling entitled to your return, they finally understood that they might have missed their opportunity. They say, "That was the warning." You ask, "What warning?" They answer, "The warning that I can't keep waiting for the perfect moment." And suddenly, everything makes sense. They were not warning you that something terrible would happen. They were warning you that time is moving. That life is moving. That hearts change. That opportunities do not remain open forever. And that if they truly want to be honest, they must stop hiding behind fear. They tell you, "I don't know what happens after tonight. But I know I don't want another year to pass without telling you the truth." And you realize something. This conversation was never really about getting the past back. It was about understanding it. The connection may or may not become what it once was. But the confusion can finally end. The blame can finally end. The unanswered questions can finally end. And perhaps that is the miracle hidden inside the warning. Not that someone suddenly returns. Not that every wound disappears. But that the truth finally arrives. My child, remember this part. If someone truly wants to return to your life, let them return with honesty. Let them show you through actions. Let them respect your boundaries. Let them understand that your heart is not a waiting room. And if someone comes back only with words, you are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to observe. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to protect your peace. The spiritual lesson in this fictional story is not that you should chase your soulmate. It is that you should never abandon yourself while waiting for someone else to discover your value. You are valuable before they recognize it. You are worthy before they return. You are whole before they apologize. And your future does not depend on another person's courage. But sometimes, another person's courage can finally bring closure to a chapter that remained unfinished. And tonight, your soulmate has found that courage. The conversation continues. They tell you about the message they received. They tell you what they discovered. They tell you why today was different. Then they say something you never expected. "I was afraid that if I told you everything, you would hate me." You answer, "I don't hate you." There is a long silence. Then they ask, "What do you feel?" And for the first time, you realize that you do not need to answer immediately. You can breathe. You can think. You can let the truth settle. You can choose your response instead of reacting from old pain. That is your power. You have grown. You are not the same person who once needed an answer at any cost. You can hear the truth without losing yourself inside it. You can care without chasing. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love without surrendering your boundaries. And perhaps your soulmate finally sees that. They say, "You're different." You smile quietly. Maybe they are right. You are different. Because the pain taught you what your worth means. The silence taught you what you deserve. The waiting taught you patience. The disappointment taught you discernment. And the distance taught you how to stand on your own. Your soulmate realizes something profound. They did not lose you because you stopped loving. They almost lost you because they failed to recognize the love that was already there. That realization becomes the final piece. The warning was never simply, "Be careful." It was, "Wake up. Wake up before another year disappears. Wake up before pride becomes permanent. Wake up before the person you love learns to live completely without you. Wake up before the truth arrives too late." And tonight, your soulmate is awake. They are finally seeing what they refused to see. They are finally hearing what they refused to hear. They are finally understanding what your silence was trying to say. And perhaps, somewhere in the quiet space between two hearts, the past is beginning to release its grip. Not because everything is magically fixed, but because the truth has entered the room. And once truth enters, fear no longer has the same power. Your soulmate says one final thing before the call ends. "I don't know what happens next. But I want you to know something. I never stopped caring." You remain silent. They continue. "And I am not asking you to wait. I am asking you to know the truth." That sentence stays with you. Because suddenly, you understand the difference between a promise and an admission. A promise demands a future. An admission simply honors the truth. And tonight, the truth is enough. For now. You end the call. The room becomes quiet again. You look at your phone. Nothing else happens. No dramatic reunion. No perfect ending. Just silence. But this silence feels different. It no longer feels like unanswered confusion. It feels like the silence after a storm. The kind of silence where you can finally breathe. And somewhere else, your soulmate is sitting alone, realizing that telling the truth was only the beginning. Because now they have to prove that they have changed. Now they have to face the consequences of their choices. Now they have to learn how to love without fear controlling every decision. And you? You are being invited to keep walking forward. If your paths cross again, let it happen through honesty. If they return, let their actions speak. If they apologize, listen if you choose, but do not abandon your wisdom. And if life takes you somewhere completely different, do not believe that the love you experienced was meaningless. Some connections teach. Some connections transform. Some connections return. And some connections exist to awaken you to a version of yourself you had never met before. You do not need to know which one this is tonight. You only need to know that you survived the uncertainty. You survived the silence. You survived the questions. You survived the moments when you thought you were forgotten. And now, the story has given you something the past could not. Clarity. My beloved child, if there is one message I want you to carry from this fictional spiritual story, it is this. Never confuse someone's inability to communicate with your lack of worth. Never measure your value by someone's timing. Never destroy your peace trying to force someone else to understand you. And never believe that silence automatically means you were forgotten. People are complicated. Hearts are complicated. Fear is complicated. But truth has a way of simplifying what fear made confusing. Tonight, your soulmate finally chose truth. And whether that truth leads to reconciliation, closure, friendship, distance, or a completely unexpected new chapter, one thing has already changed. You are no longer carrying the entire weight of the unanswered question. They are carrying their part now. And perhaps that is what needed to happen. Perhaps the warning was not meant to frighten you. Perhaps it was meant to prepare you. Prepare you to hear the truth without losing yourself. Prepare you to recognize accountability. Prepare you to distinguish real change from empty promises. Prepare you to understand that love should not require you to sacrifice your identity. And prepare you for whatever chapter comes next. Because the most powerful part of this story is not whether your soulmate returns. It is whether both of you become honest enough to stop repeating the same patterns. That is where transformation begins. And as this fictional message comes to an end, imagine your soulmate looking at your last conversation one more time. They see your name. They see the words they finally had the courage to send. They close their eyes. And for the first time, they do not ask, will they come back? They ask, how can I become someone who deserves the trust one once broke? That is a different question. A better question. A question that can lead to real change. And somewhere deep inside you, another question may be forming. What happens now? That answer cannot be forced. It must unfold. One honest conversation at a time. One action at a time. One boundary at a time. One day at a time. So breathe. Let the story settle. Do not chase the ending. Do not force the next chapter. Let life reveal what words cannot. Because sometimes the greatest revelation is not that someone finally comes back. Sometimes it is realizing that you no longer need them to return in order to know that you were worthy of being loved correctly. And sometimes, when two people finally become honest, the future opens in a way neither could have predicted. Your soulmate has delivered the warning. The secret has been exposed. The misunderstanding has been uncovered. The apology has been spoken. And the choice now belongs to both of you. Not the past. Not fear. Not other people's opinions. You. And perhaps that is where the real miracle begins. Not in waiting. Not in chasing. But in finally choosing truth. Because when truth replaces fear, the heart becomes free. And when the heart becomes free, whatever is truly meant for you no longer needs to be forced. It will meet you with clarity. It will meet you with respect. It will meet you with consistency. And it will never require you to lose yourself just to keep it. So if this fictional message found you tonight, take the lesson with you. Protect your peace. Honor your heart. Stay open to truth. But remain grounded in reality. Let actions reveal intentions. Let time reveal consistency. And let your own growth remain the center of your journey. Because your story is bigger than one person. Your life is bigger than one unanswered message. Your future is bigger than one chapter. And whatever happens next, you are not walking into it as the same person who entered the silence. You are wiser now. Stronger now. More aware now. And perhaps that is the true meaning of the warning. Something happened today. But maybe the thing that changed was not your destiny. Maybe it was your understanding. Maybe it was your soulmate's courage. Maybe it was the truth finally finding its way into the light. And sometimes, my beloved child, that is enough to change everything. The call has ended. The screen has gone dark. The room is quiet. But somewhere between the last word and the next breath, a new chapter has already begun. Not because someone promised you forever. But because the truth finally arrived. And now you are free to choose what comes next. Remember that. Your heart is yours. Your peace is yours. Your future is yours. And no person's silence can ever take away the value that was already inside you. The warning has been delivered. The secret has been revealed. The old misunderstanding has finally been confronted. And now, whatever comes next, let it come through truth. Let it come through action. Let it come through peace. And above all, never forget yourself while loving someone else.